podcast listeners, if you hear my voice right now, I need you to do something for me. I want you to take out your phone or on your computer, go to Apple Podcasts, search for Ask Your Oldhead podcast. You'll see my logo, my little picture, my little image there. Find the show. Please rate and write a review. It's a small thing, but it helps others find this work and find what I'm doing here. And it really, really matters, as small as that may seem. So if you could please do that before we get into the show, I very much appreciate it. Thank you for listening. Let's get into it. Peace. Peace. Majestic, we are here again on a Friday. And this week, I don't think there's any way we could start talking about anything without making space to discuss what's going on in Minneapolis and the events that have followed the death of George Floyd, the murder of George Floyd. As it has been, as it appears to be, or at least a death that was fully not necessary, to say the least. I felt we should maybe. Man, it's a lot of things that come to mind with this. So I just will pitch it to you. Maybe I feel like we can't talk about anything without talking about this in life and this and what have you. So what's your thoughts?
That's right. For me, it's really about the cost of doing business. And that sounds strange and offline, but it's about the cost of doing business. And what I mean by that is, what is the cost of doing business with state-sanctioned murder, right? What's the cost of what do people pay for that? You know what I mean? And then like we'll get into a little deeper. Again, how much is his life worth, right? Like, so when you really think about this, and when you think about, like, you can see these things now on TV over and over again. And one thing that's consistent about them is you're watching the ones where there is no fight. So we're not even talking about ones where somebody might die in police custody. Somebody might die in a struggle. These are things that are happening with no struggle, which I think is really important, because that means we've gotten past framing it like, oh, well, this person moved, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are, Philando Castle, this one, these are not somebody moved. This is just, I was paranoid and had no respect for the human life, so I just killed him, right? And so, just the cost and the idea, and I got some perspectives, but yeah, I just feel like, it's like, oh, well, we can get away with it. Nothing's going to really happen, right? Somebody get fired for a couple of days, somebody go to court, but guess what? The FOP going to pay for the lawyer bills, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that person's not coming out their pocket, actually. You know what I mean? Again, the cost of doing business. What does it cost him personally to go through this? What does it cost somebody to go through this? What does it cost America to continue to go through this? And if the cost isn't high enough, then collectively, we're all willing to keep paying it. Now, some would argue, say, I'm not willing to pay, and I'm going to show you. But what we're showing is that we actually extract the same payment every time. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Ferguson.
Yeah.
Baltimore. Minneapolis. Right? This is the payment that we extract. So it's not like a unusual payment we're extracting. And I argue that in order to change that, you have to extract another payment, which makes the cost of doing business not worth the activity collectively.
Mm.
Where you at with it, man?
I flow through the anger piece, when you become aware or what happened or what is happening or what occurred, and you're like what, it's like it's gonna end bad, right? So
Right.
I like the first time I saw the video pop up somewhere, and it had the this might be graphic, da da da, which I always know is like, all right, man, especially depending on the source. I'm like, I know this is about to be somebody look like me, or like us,
Right.
you know what I'm saying, in some form of duress, while more than likely in custody, or at least what appears to be in custody to the plain eye. And then the hopeful thing is that it's like you get to a crazy mind shift, or where you're like, well, hopefully the brother made it out,
Right.
right? And then you find out the brother didn't make it out, and it becomes a what is the sequence of events where whatever the action that was being taken, that one thought the risk of life was worth the energy, and then pursuant to what you really manifest there, when this happens, we see these incidents. We don't see, I mean, I'm sure it's not the first time that officer's put his knee on somebody's neck.
Right.
Right. Because you don't do that, and it's like that's your first time doing such a thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and don't, like, well, who, people, I'm sure there's someone that would maybe try to convince me otherwise. But, I'm just not buying it. The same way that often an individual, being as someone that works with folks with records that have returned, to return to the community, their presumption of action, and of prior action, even when there's no evidence of such, is always, well, yeah, he's clearly, probably did this or that before, if they've ever been convicted of this or that, or they were caught with this or that, right? But we will suspend that sort of logic and thinking for a person in uniform who puts their knee on the neck of a man who's, from all I can see, in cuffs with 3-4 other people
Right.
involved, right? And from this, being to, so I just, like, I'm trying to, how do you respond? What's the appropriate response at a distance? Where I sit from it. I'm not in Minneapolis. I'm in Oregon.
And so let me ask you this.
Yeah.
And get your perspective on this, because I'm challenged with this. Like, sometimes we become so in love with the process that we neglect the result. So, meaning, there's a whole bunch of people that got on flights today to go to Minneapolis, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's police brutality happening in their cities, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's unresolved stuff. It's stuff going on in the community, which leaves people open to having police interactions in all them other cities. So my thing is, and I'm not talking about the provocateurs, of which I think there are a number.
Mm-hmm.
I think folks are mad, and often we like to use the riot as a language of unheard. But again, my thing is, when we keep extracting the same thing, I don't know if it's not the language of the unheard, or it's the language that this particular group of people can speak, which I think is a different conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, what's your take on people like leaving their town to go to Minneapolis to fight police brutality in a city they ain't from?
I don't see it. Like, if I understand folks feeling the need to do something, right? I question if the action, if that particular action, you know, if that is going to get to what outcome that's getting to, right?
Right.
And I might be MC, captured by cerebrally processing what should happen and how to do or what to do. But there's a lot of things with it. There's from my tactical strategy mindset. It's how does someone show up in another person's space and not possibly inadvertently take things in a direction that they ain't supposed to go, right? Because everyone that adds into the mix in a situation, redirects what's happening here. Now, largely as it pertains to, the explosion of, people in the streets, people protesting, it goes like back to, when we helped those youth do a walkout, in Pittsburgh when Johnny Anderson was killed.
Yeah.
Shit.
Right.
And
23 years ago.
Right. And our conversation was very heavy on, we want these kids to express themselves and get out in the street the way but we also want to prevent someone whom maybe honestly acting in their anger and where they're at with it and their pain, but others in harm's way, who did not sign up for that. And and then it becomes a thing of the almost a concern for me of, these are like, as you've stated, that these become our reactions. We have the incident happens, right? The incident is as the end point of systemic matters,
Right.
right? We could go to the bad actor, poor decision making, blah 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 blah. What's up with the training discussion? But all of those things still roll back to, systemic realities.
That's right.
And then the counter comes, or the response, for protests. You get, anything when people are angry, it just takes one or two people for the energy to go to a place where, stuff starts getting broken.
Right.
And I'm not here to judge whether they should or shouldn't break stuff. That's not really none of my business, honestly. That's stuff gets broken, things get happen. You get into this loop of almost where, it's going to go how many days, and then someone's going to go and say, no, we need to use this moment, highlight something, so let's extract these higher level of concessions.
There you go.
So to speak, right? So, for us to go home, we need this, and this. For that, you get in a place where, this is a part of the thing. Like folks will feel like they're breaking out of the thing, but it's like we're doing the thing again.
And that's my point. We're doing the thing again. So if somebody is like, and I respect it, but someone's like, this is the language of the unheard. No, this just happened 4 or 5 times in America. This is not the language of the unheard. This is the response that we all assume once it goes that far, only to follow by days of thinking. Then, like you said, someone say, well, we need investment because that's how this exploded, which gets away from, no, it didn't happen because people weren't invested in. It happened because you have a state-sanctioned group of people who are killing other people.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is not, you don't have boys and girls clubs, right? But that's where it ends.
Yeah.
Right? We need to do something else. And then people with big pockets, right? come out and say, we got big pockets. Somebody at some university writes a report, right?
Mm-hmm.
It talks about how do we stop this from happening in the future, which is like the damn Kerner report all over again, right? Philanthropy comes in, builds some stuff that says belonging or together we win on the site, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've seen the show before, man. And I'm telling you, I'm rumbling with this because on one level I feel like people will say, well, see, we can't get no response the other way. Well, which I'll go into in a minute, but I don't know if we've actually tried the other way to actually be successful. We've just been so unsuccessful the other way that now for the last 50 years we've been saying this is the way. And that's, again, like to your point, I'm not passing judgment. But I'm saying, like, is Ferguson, and I've met some of the brothers and sisters out Ferguson in the St. Louis broadly, and they was doing and they were and have been doing amazing work. But is St. Louis fundamentally different? Is Baltimore fundamentally different than before Freddie Gray? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we got to ask that question. So yeah, like this is part of the cycle where the extraction economy comes, right? And that's the cost of, back to my point though, just that's the cost of doing business.
Right.
So everyone understands that cost, right? Everyone understands the cost of you're going to have to invest some more money in police community relations. You're going to have to put some more money in youth programming and workforce development, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's all understood. And so everyone is okay with that because we all speak that language. And I would argue that the challenge here is that that's not the language you should be speaking because it's not getting you your desired result.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I just, and then the thing and we, from someone who's been doing advocacy around, policy with police and other things, like people should say something. folks should write statements. Our local police entity wrote one of the big unions. And it's I've been whether the number of little videos and this is supposedly an officer saying, yeah man, officers, this is cool, like that's great, man, like fantastic that somebody got up and said something on a video, but it's still the thing that we're trying to change in the broader, larger scope is like I want to remain respectful to the life of George Floyd and go, hey, it hurts. I'm sad for, whatever respects and love to your family. And then over here, adjacent to folks, the long-term creation of a world that operates differently is not going to be handed to us from anyone. There's no
from any individual actor.
Right. There's no that's not what's going to happen, right? And it's to me it's the thing. I think when all this stuff happens, when these happen, these murders and these deaths happen, when other matters happen, from the smaller things with kids getting shitty education to the water in Flint still fucked up,
right?
Right. So then we go, like right now, the current operational analysis and languages go into white supremacy. It's got to come down, and I know what very intelligent, studied, learned, committed people. Mm-hmm. I know I'm pretty confident about their intent, right, in framing the conversation around that. My concern is if the adjacent to that public conversation, the conversation that says, now let me make sure y'all understand what we mean in terms of actionable activity as a community who feels as though you have been affected negatively by this situation. What does that mean for you? Do you know what, even asking the question, replacing the agency back in people? Like, do you know why I'm saying that here? You know what I mean? Because that's not the conversation I'm going to say when me and you meet about what your community wants, about what your block needs, about what you're trying to do for the good of your people, as that pertains to, because I feel, one of the interesting pieces with this is, the brothers from Houston originally. So there's a lot of folks from there that I think prominent amongst them, Steven Jackson, who's not from Houston but he's from Texas, who I'm not totally sure the exact relations, but they are deeply connected. I don't know if they physical family or just brothers in the sense of that we brothers.
Right.
And he is taking a prominent role to push that this does not get left behind, right? That this doesn't get pushed off the table. And I applaud him and I support making sure whatever efforts he's doing get made known. Also, I ask people, we have to differentiate between, if it's getting these officers to a trial. And if they get to trial and they all get convicted, none of that still ain't gonna bring the brother back. And the thing I like I said, I was in a conversation on Tuesday, and I'm concerned the folks going to despair, where we get comfortable in these situations, not of just going, yeah, and again they're just killing us, and then I'm gonna go do something that allows me to ameliorate my pain, and that there's nothing that I can do systemically, nothing that I can create that could eventually change the dynamics by which we move in the world. And I refuse to accept that. And that's where my attention goes, because I have to, I know some of that is longitudinal, long down the road. It don't feel like action things. And often it involves us and not the offending party. So to speak.
Well, and so Justin, thank you for saying that, because I think part of the challenge is like, so it's weird because it happens two ways. One, we try to we try to look to a person solving something, when the person, which is like now, it would be like the new, like you said, like the police chiefs. And our police chief came out today, said something really positive. He meant it. It wasn't scripted, right? Great. But that is not the cost of doing business. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is not the cost of doing business. That is a good person in a system that, due to the cost of doing business, has become indifferent. Now, this is also where I think people get their moral space, that just according to, our values, sometimes it's not as much of a moral space. My own personality does not lend itself to that, right? Like, okay, it's not about the guy from Texas, because the guy from Texas, okay, they can fire the person. But the thing is, again, the FOP still is going to pay for the law. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're still going to get support from across the country. They're still going to get support from deep-pocketed people who are protecting an interest. Right? They are protecting an interest by having this idea of law and order be the order of the day. Mm-hmm. And so looking for individuals to ameliorate that becomes a challenge, right? Now, on the flip side, we name these systems without naming the parts of the systems that actually can be shifted. Mm-hmm. So while I might use the term, that's white supremacy and racism. Okay, well then the challenge is, though, you're going to have to name the point, the pivot point. Right? You have to name the space of where that manifests itself and what you could do to engage that. Because if not, it becomes the boogeyman. right?
Mm-hmm.
I read something, man. It has stuck with me about 3 years. It said when people are isolated, two things occur: anger and despair, and they're both really expensive.
Mm.
And what happens in these spaces is people are angry, and then now people are just, everyone's like, I'm tired, right? So really what you're now going into is despair. We don't name it that, but that's really what it is. It is a continual culture of despair. And now we got social media that gives that to each other.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So you keep reading everyone else saying you're tired. Well, guess what? You are tired. Because you're reading everybody else say they're tired. Or you're reading everyone else say that they're angry. So even if you look at the two kind of dominant themes that have emerged out of this, is anger and despair. And I think both of those issues are relevant, they are real, they are valid. The question is, what do you do about either of them to actually shift it so that, again, going back to my thing, the cost of doing business is too high for this to continue to occur, right? That it can't be accepted that this can occur. And another thing that I have really been thinking about, and this goes back to the Tree of Life here in Pittsburgh when we had the Tree of Life massacre.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had the massacre that happened in Wilkinsburg. And, some community members were looking at it like, why is some attention given to this one and something given to that one? And, I think there were a variety of reasons for that. But one thing I came to, and this is for everybody, everyone thinks of a Black life as disposable.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like white folks do. Black folks think of Black lives as disposable too. Because, we'll be like, oh, man, what happened last night? Oh, man, who?
Oh, man, yeah, they was up there, man. Then woobity whoop, this happened, and yeah.
He was laying out there, right? Like, just like, yo, okay, yeah. Like I said, like I was, when I was younger, like, yo, he got his head knocked off. He got this, he got that. Like, you kind of dehumanized it. Like, you could disconnected it. You started using all these phrasings, right? That didn't get to, like, a person that was alive is dead, right? Like, they're not living anymore, right? There was a person who was a part of the human families who is now transitioned to another space. And so if we see our lives disposable because of these larger systems, the systems are reinforcing that it's disposable. So whether it's something taken by the life of somebody, so like state sanctioned violence, or with the brother that was running, white vigilantes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or intra-community violence, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of it's treated as disposable. So when all of it's treated as disposable, it's no accident to not have a solution, because basically the premise of it is the shit was disposable anyway. So who cares? And so right now we're dealing with despair, anger, saying not again, not anymore, without what I'm going to argue a pathway to making that cost of doing business so high. Because I'm not depending on the moralistic standpoint or perspective.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how power works in America.
Yeah.
Things have not changed in America because everyone wanted them to change. They changed because the power dynamic and the space and the confluence theory all made sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when the value one can find in getting to know the details around how other parts of the world function, not from like that society is socialist, it's capitalist, it's bitter, like not that way, like the ins and outs of, especially extractive states. And as Black people, we may not always recognize that we live in an extractive state relationship most of the time with the rest of the United States that surrounds us. We have the entire time. That's the place. When people say they want to keep us down and these sorts of things, I try to get away from language that's not giving me some specifics around what the conditions that one is trying to put me into. Right. Because it becomes something about me where it's not really about me, it's about them. But we exist in these extractive states, and in an extractive space that we know whether consciously, meaning frontal part of your cortex, or where all decision making gets made in your amygdala, that there will not be much. There's a higher chance that I will get out of doing this action against this individual without much harm than the other. Right.
Exactly.
Right. And it's innately known. It's not even like, oh, well, he's thinking about hurting the black man. Like he's having this just full cognitive reality. Like I want to hurt somebody black. It's like, no. I know that for the most part, whatever I do from here, I will be okay. More than likely. The Joan that did the thing earlier in the week, she knew, or she was pretty confident that she was going to be okay. Messing with the brother watching the birds. The 3 dudes following, the brother from running, brother Aubrey. We gonna be okay if we do these actions, more than likely, right? And it's the thought process we will talk about. I think, at least this is my interpretation of things in the world. This brother's in the streets this way or that way. They operate. Their situation can get them go. I will more than likely get away with busting these shots at this community, this party or whatever, than not, because
that's right.
Nobody's going to really investigate it that hard, and and a whole lot of people ain't going to talk about it too much, But me leaning a lot to ain't nobody going to investigate it all that hard, quite frankly, right? So we gonna handle this right now. There's so when we get in this moment, and I want to recenter folks on like the thought I went back to, and it's the thing that keeps me recentered with this, and not get into like almost like a bashing myself thing. And this might all be a Justice self Jedi mind trick. But a long time ago, you were around there in our principal part of that process for me. But somewhere, I want to say maybe we was living on McKee or in between there. And when I sat down and I thought about, in my own thoughts, what would I give? What would I do to see the freedom in the world that I want? What would I give up? What cost would I pay? Right. And it's something, you in a conversation, I don't know if it was taped, but recently you said that like, folks sometimes make a mistake with speaking about me, the things that I will do versus the things that I'm choosing to do. Right. But that night I thought, and I realized I would give up all of this shit to see us free, to see and freedom being something that is derived from your culture and way of life, manifesting an impact on reality. Not just theoretically, not just in your mind, but like in a back and forth, real time, reciprocal relationship that how you live and move also shapes and moves the world to whatever degree. Right. So I take the good with the bad. I take decisive steps. I try to think ahead, and then I also go the outcomes. Ultimately, I'm going to take and assume the responsibility for them. And so if that means I whatever it is, if I got to give up hip hop to get free. All right, let's give up hip hop. I got to give up meat to get free. Let's give up meat. I got to give up a certain comfort and station of living. I'm down with that. I got to move to a different part of the world. All right. Whatever I also, though, do I have to go sit in rooms I don't want to be in? Do I have to deal with frustrating people or people who I don't think understand, what I'm trying to see or what I'm trying to do? People that disrespect and don't care. If I got to do that the end result will be a substantive change, then I'm with it. And so when these happen, I try to recenter myself on, if we're going to respond and we're going to retrace, the really, so I've seen a couple of things folks have, framed it in the related way, domestic violence and an abusive relationship, this ongoing abusive relationship we have with the society, where we get mad, we flare up reasonably, and then the other strictures of life, the entropy, from physics folks that understand, will start to pull us back to, all right, man, you know what? All that I'm upset, You know what I got to do though? I got to feed my daughter in 2 days, so I can't go out there with them to protest tonight. My mom, you know what I'm saying? My sister over here, my aunt, my brother, all the other things are going to start to happen, right? And
all the things.
And so, just in case I'm not misunderstood, these are not necessarily just things of our modern age. If if we were hunter gatherers, 300 years ago, or nomads on a prairie, at some point you have to decide what stuff you have time to go and be in fights about, and what stuff you need to do to keep the preservation of your existence. And whether one is doing that in a very frontal, willful way, or one is doing that when they go, it's hard to keep going out and fighting, especially when you're fighting, something that is not actually the end goal of the change, right? When protesters go out and then a response force of some kind is placed there, one can get into the mistaken idea that the officers standing and blocking the street or protecting some buildings or dispersing a crowd, that they themselves are the endpoint entity of the change, but they're not.
Right.
And I'm sure, like they're just not. And it's got to be this. It's a long fight, man, and that's
the thing. To your point, it's a protracted struggle, right? It's a protracted struggle using a combination of means to get to your end game. But again, to your point, if you don't know what the end game looks like, everything else, you start to live in the process, because the result is unclear.
Yeah.
You could argue, I don't want people to kill people, but why would they not kill you? Right? Do you want it to be every personal interaction that this white or black person? Because let's not make any confusion. When it says sanctioned violence, it ain't got to be just white on black.
Yeah.
It could be anti-black behavior from a black person.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So what do you want? Because if every white person was okay with every black person, that still doesn't mean police brutality would go away. Mm. That's like saying if you got rid of money, that people wouldn't take advantage of other people. No, taking advantage of other people is a human condition. Money just kind of speeds it up. Mm-hmm. So like, what is the methodology that you're going to get to this? And this is something I was thinking about over the last 2 days, just, and it's not fully baked. You know what I mean? But I want to put it out there. And if it's right, if it's wrong, I'm we brothers. So, and whoever's listening, they're just listening. So, but I've been thinking that, like, when we think about when like momentous change happened, now you could go with the Derek Bell theory that it happens when white folks was under pressure from other countries and had to make change, like in the 60s, right? There's that theory that, like, whenever your interest and the interest of white folks not to appear like who they are, like, kind of connect, cool. There's the theories of this occurs when you get enough influence in spaces and people, again, the cost of doing business is too high, right? The Lyndon Johnson theory, right? So there's a couple of these theories. But also, I thought about when we were talking about these changes, whether it's the Niagara movement, whether it's Mary McLeod Bethune at the White House, right? Mm-hmm. You had national leaders who had widespread support in the Black community through a variety of means. And then you had very, very strong institutions that advocated on behalf of said people with trusted leaders who could be depended upon to activate tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people at a time. So when we think about the March on Washington, and you have all these leaders of all different ethnicities, we know this is not a one-side story, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But when you have the NAACP, SCLC, SNCC, CORE, right? When you have all these different organizations, the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, when you have these churches, when the churches are truly representative of communities, right? When like the pastor truly is representative of 5,000 people. You have leadership that someone looks and says, you actually are a person that moves that group of people to action. And I'm thinking about right now, and the last one I'll say, the last time I saw this that it was really practical was even apartheid, right? In the divestment movement. Mm-hmm. Now, by that time, I will argue it had shifted largely to like elected officials who were using like the inside game. Yeah. And then we were beginning the use of like, you know, Different World and Cosby Show. You see the shows and people say, man, divest, and we don't wear them shoes, we don't wear them sneakers, or we don't drink this particular kind of soda. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But you always had like trusted people who had the widespread support of a group of people who were able to do these things. And I just think about, like, if you're trying to handle something nationally, there is no set of people like that today. We don't invest in our own institutions in that manner. And I think one of the reasons is because before we were investing in these quality of life institutions on a state and federal level to get a certain laws passed, where now we invest in mentorship groups. We invest in the digital divide, right? So when people start to say, well, what do I give my money and time to? Well, I give my money and time to the football team. I give my money and time to my pet project, right? They don't give their money and time to having lobbyists in Washington.
Yeah.
Right? They don't give their money and time to having lobbyists in Salem or Harrisburg, right? Mm-hmm. Think about the things you care about. Think about, is there anyone living in the capital of your state to advance your interests at all times?
I would say for most people, no.
For most people, no. But for white folks, there are people who are, or for particular interests, there are people who are sitting there. You would never question it about that for AIPAC. You would never ask that about the NRA. You know that there are people dedicated to spending money to preserving their interest. And even if they lose, they don't lose. And so it really has started to make me think, and I'm not, so no one listens to this thinks I want to be head of a national organization, but I don't. So I don't want none of y'all to hear this and be like, well, I'm saying, brother, you
got some powerful language, brother. I mean, I feel like I can get behind you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right.
We need to get you up there.
Exactly. Single silver bullet theory.
You know what I'm saying?
But I'm just saying, like, we don't have that. And when you don't have an organization that can get the president on the phone, not even this current guy, but even other ones. You know what I mean? Because that's why I think people took for granted that it was like, well, Obama black, but that don't mean that person, Obama's black, but he is dealing with as many things as you can possibly imagine. That doesn't mean he's always thinking about your interests, your specific interest, your unenumerated interest, right? Your unarticulated interest. So I just think, man, that is a huge thing because, now, like I said, every activist is converging on Minnesota. Every fledgling organization is converging on Minnesota. But respect to all my brothers and sisters in Minneapolis. But I'm using this as an example. What price is Governor Walz going to pay for having the Minnesota State Police be the way that they were today? Mm. Right? Mm. What price do they pay for that? Again, it costs of doing business, right? If they don't pay no price, if you don't have people running and putting money in campaigns and making it difficult for him to move his stuff because of his perspective on a particular issue, All right. So what they locked up the black guy that worked at CNN? So what? You know why? Because the cost of doing business. You're not going to do nothing.
Yeah. Long term, it ain't going to hurt me.
No.
Right now,
And if I
y'all
know
mad. 2 weeks.
Exactly.
In a month or around, this time next year, it'll be like, remember that time that the state police did that? And the officer said he was just following orders? And then people will be like, yeah, that's fucked up.
Right. It's identifying who are the 3 people who gave the order, and they should all be fired.
Right. And then any of them, is the sheriff of that, is the state police sheriff, how is that position?
Right. Is it elected?
Is it elected? Right.
Is it appointed? If you appointed somebody, who did you appoint? And who is pressing a button right now in capital Minneapolis is actually St. Paul. Right. So I passed 7th grade geography.
That's right. Right there.
Also, just a quick aside, I actually did win a 7th grade geography test on this. A geography
state capital
competition. Yeah, but it was like the sister city of the capital of
Minnesota, right, which is Minneapolis.
And I was like, no, the sister city is St. Paulo, Brazil.
Oh, yeah, my fault. Right.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, sister city. I was like, and I pulled that out. I don't know why I was reading the geography book. But anyway. All I'm saying is, man, that, you got to really think about what are your institutions, because we rail against institutions that are affected by other institutions without creating your own institution to impact those institutions. Hence why your quote unquote vote doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because it's not connected to anything else.
Right. You have no other active interests in how the world functions.
Right.
And I would say it is the thing to me that we have been most effectively convinced that that's the best way to go. And some people say, what do you mean by that? What I mean by that is that if you are going to decide, I'm going to remove myself from as much of the electoral, economic direction, policy direction, what have you, of the society I live in due to the harm it has done to me. However, internally, I am not going to put together any defined guidelines of how my world runs that operates and directs how we act outside of just, more, again, harm reduction. Harm reduction is important and valuable. Has to happen because a lot of it just, all the realities of the health effects and everything else that we experience that are directly related to the harm we experience. And so we need the harm reduction pieces to stay here. However, we also, if we jumping off and we removing, we have to build something. You have to build something. It don't have to be for me. It could be for you and your family. It could be for, your particular line, how y'all think your world should function. But removing from systems and having the operational philosophy that my only involvement is the system is just, I'm trying not to be involved with the system as little as possible. Similar to you not even similar. I'm not going to bring them people up because later for them. But you will find yourself, basically the system has accounted for you not being involved, but also not necessarily making something else over there.
Right.
Like, it's like, hey, that's cool. That works for us. Go over there and maybe have your personal networks or you just have we go, we live in week to week, day to day, trying to make it, and I understand that that's what I hope that folks do not misconstrue that as some indictment of people, trying to make it. What I'm speaking to is when catastrophic events, and I'm going to put this in the line of a catastrophic event. So we got this catastrophic event. We got the brother in Atlanta, catastrophic event. We got what went on, we got this global pandemic that's happening, right? But all of these events have not changed any of the rules, the laws of physics, the science of how chemistry works, the day-to-day reality of being a human on Earth has not fundamentally changed. You know, an analogy I use actually in a conversation about the pandemic, I was like, look, if you knew you lived in a 100-year floodplain, and ain't been no floods in 100 years, but you know, sometime, at least 3 times in the last 500 years, a flood has come through here and put 2 feet, 4 feet of water in this spot. It's fine if every day y'all, you building home, you just living life, doing your thing. The day the flood come, because it's gonna come. The day the flood come, to rail against the world that, there should have been a plan, there should have been this, should have been that. And it's like, well, we all were acting like it was cool until the flood came. Right. None of us thought it was a big issue. Some people did. Some people was like, hey man, y'all live in a 100-year floodplain, man. Like, yeah, so what? Ain't never been no flood. Maybe there won't be one. We'll be fine.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like when the event happens that we all could put on the calendar that there was a good probability. And I know humans, we struggle with abstract numbers and things that ain't happened yet. And these are part of our challenge functioning in the world. But when it happens, you still needed a plan to account for that before. And we have the capacity to put into the cost of business that, hey, you know what's going to happen if, to quote from My Summer Vacation, it's a ride if any of us die. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, man, you should know if this happens, we're going to be on you like white on rice. You know what I'm saying? Like, and not in no just we going to yell at you and write nasty letters way. We're going to find the various means to disrupt your comfort if you harm us. Right. And I hear people will say it and they kind of always go to the like somebody's going to get shot or beat up frame, in which I'm like, I hear that, but human history folks have also operated and knows that the majority of people are not actually comfortable hurting other people even when they're angry. And that's okay. That's actually a good thing about us as humans. Right. So really jumping to that analogy is a place people will go, but that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if you harm us, we have to having the means to say we will disrupt your comfort.
Right.
And then you will put that in your calculus like, well, you know who I don't want to, know what road I don't want to drive up. Like, I don't want to go over on Third Valley because, you did what to them? Sort of like, if you think about John Wick and they're like, whose car did you steal? Like, you took a car from somebody, man? It's like, wait a minute, who? Exactly. You're like, oh, shit. Fuck. It's like, motherfuckers getting on the phone. Like, man, I gotta stem the tide. And that power as communities, as entities, as a people is actually developed by having institutions within your community, whatever they are, that can make things happen in the world. And that people have to bear witness to them. And, it's not just one entity. It's not, there's multiple places. And then there's, we have to have it. That is our only protection. And then the hard part and the thing I think that's challenging about that is that to have those institutions, some people have to commit some of their lives to it. And right now, we're just not totally there. Some of us are there in different ways. We speak often about the people in our communities that are overtaxed for how much time they're spending trying to help us.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't acknowledge them. People don't see them, or people don't think what they're doing is enough.
Right.
And then that goes to me back to that fear and despair. And anger and despair. Was it fear and despair or anger and despair?
Anger and despair.
Anger and despair. Rock and roll. Thank you. Fear was in there, but
fear is part of both of them.
But and I think that when someone else is going to die, as fucked up as that is to say, it's going to happen. Because the thought has already been seeded and it's blooming, and it will have the opportunity to bloom. We have to be prepared to change things.
So, I know getting close. So, a very interesting thing that's so very challenging, though. I don't know if you recently saw on CNN like the last couple of hours. They're saying the reason that George Floyd died was, guess what? He was choked, but
yeah, I saw.
He had heart disease and he had coronary artery damage. So, and this is like we talked about my challenge with COVID. Y'all just naturally unhealthy.
Yeah, y'all wasn't so sickly.
So if you wasn't so sick, these things wouldn't kill you. These things wouldn't have killed a guy that was in shape. These things wouldn't have killed a guy that needed a whole bunch of fried chicken, right? That didn't have coronary artery disease. This killed people because of this. Oh, how did you die because of COVID? Oh, you know why you died, because you had pre-existing conditions. Oh, okay, so you was already sick, right? So the fact of bringing in you was already sick as a answer for this just shows the extent. And I guess where I depart from a lot of people is I don't think power is shared. Not in collective societies.
No.
Power is taken. There's just not America. Say what you will. You might argue it happened somewhere else, but you not see in American society where power was not taken. Now it was taken through a variety of means. It was taken through the bully pulpit. It was taken through the economic status. It was taken through, the confluence theory. Like it was taken through a lot of different forms, but it's never truly been shared. And I'm fascinated when people think that, like, unless systems have an interest in Black people being healthy, that they will participate in Black people being healthy. And that they have an express interest, they know the interest, they've expressed the interest in you, they've decided to partner with you, that they will have an investment in Black folks being healthy. When basically it's money to be made in us not being healthy. Right? Or at least it's easier to close your eyes. Let me just say that. I don't even want to say new money to be made. It's easier to close your eyes to the issue. Again, the cost of doing business.
Yeah. Whew.
Yeah, man.
So, well, I want to just wrap this piece of conversation by just saying, so that it's not misunderstood in any way. The responsible parties, as I see it, for that man's life are the four, plus, because probably somebody else was there, individuals who thought those were the means that were needed to bring him in or apprehend him or whatever the hell they thought they were doing. And all these other factors and forces in the broader spectrum of our lives are there. But ultimately, no blame, no shame, no pain do I assign to the brother George Floyd, to the family, to his people, to the community around him, those that knew him and loved him, for the hardship that has sprung here. I rest in a hand to the feet of those who we, as them being public servants, give them the trust to wield violence. We give them that. That's what they sign up for, is to have the right to use violence to do things, and that we will not penalize them if they use good judgment. And if the judgment is poor, then they natural consequences. You get what you get. And that's where I sit with that. I just want that on the record. So, man, I'm giving 10 count. So we went an hour. We want to add on about the opening, or you want?
I mean, listen, man. I'm just gonna say it like this: outside is open. because people tired of being in the house, and governors is tired of fighting. Like, you know, the term was a five. I got to fight every night to prove my love.
Yeah.
Governors all across the country are tired of fighting the varied interests in their states. So they're opening outside. Whether outside should be open yet, that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
But again, the cost of doing business, the hospitals are not overpacked, and I do fear that the conversation will become, well, if Black people continue to get it more than anybody else, or the Navajo Nation, or Latinos and immigrants in New York, the answer will be because they already had pre-existing conditions, and density is destiny. So again, what's the cost of doing business? And when someone writes in the cost of your life as a cost of doing business, then you have to think about it, and to kind of appropriate to John Witherspoon, you got to reverse that. You got to reverse that. You know what I mean? So I ain't gonna go with you. Everybody watch Boomerang know what
comes next. You know what I'm saying?
But you got to reverse it, because if your life is being written in as just a cost of doing business, then that's your life in the balance.
Well, the wild thing about it, so here, Multnomah County was the last one, but the 3 most populous counties here were all sort of like, basically every other county, as soon as it was like, y'all can apply, they was like, yeah, we got an application, we ready. You know what I'm saying? And then Multnomah County, Washington County, Clackamas County, we're all like, well, you know, let's figure out a couple things. And we, you know, so basically all of the counties have June dates where they want to start. You know what I'm saying? You know, given to go into the phase 1, or it's 1 to 3, right? It's going the other way.
Yeah. Most places
it's like a 1 to 3. I don't know if it's a common national phasing, or if, you know, but in any event, you know, we people, to a large degree, we can't help ourselves. We have all of these parts and pieces and systems that are, you know, they were not conceived with the idea, and then within that, how we see ourselves and define ourselves within the idea of like staying in the house in mass.
Right.
We've also externalized the cost of like, oh, well, you know, some people can afford to live as 2 people in 3,000 square feet, and that's cool, while other people can barely afford to live in 1,200 square feet with 9 people. But that's a totally acceptable outcome of our economic structure. And, you know, like, it's cool that, like, there's nothing, if that many people live there, they must obviously like it that way. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are the things that shake out of the way our systems, our situation runs as it is currently. And so people just like, look, governors, you know, I mean, I think as any good political leader, at some point, you're like, look, people, there's only so long. There's a reality about power where you know what you have power over, but you know what you don't have power over. And, you know, at some point, y'all gonna go outside one way or another. Right? Like, if y'all keep squeezing, like, no. And even to the degree where you'll have, you know, law enforcement, who would most often be called to try to tell you to go back in the house, there's only so much time that the law enforcement officer is going to be like, yeah, man, I'm about to force this dude to go home. You know what I mean? Now, you know, we know some of the disproportionate calls in most places is mostly Black people who keep getting told, hey, man, you need to go in the house, stop being around folks. Who would have thunk it? Who would have thunk? If I'd asked you, you know, 6 weeks ago, who you think is going to be getting the most, you know, I mean, you know what I'm saying? We all knew where that was going. The wild thing to me is just to, you know, it's like folks basically saying, you know, I want to say a state senator here in a clip basically was just like, look, our county depends on this time of year to make most of the money that's made in the county. We need to be open, like in terms of tourism and the ranching. Now, you know, I would think on the food production side of the ranching, you know, people still gonna be eating food. now I know they need workers and other stuff. And then, but on the tourism side, if people ain't the part of it is a hope that if you say it's open, that people will come. And then especially if you're an outdoorsy county or a space where you're like, oh yeah, because people want to come here because there ain't going to be a lot of people. So that'd be great for us, right? We can, hotels can set up so they can serve food in the rooms, or I can see the whole chain, of economic thought, right? Where, which I will table my own thing for the supposed rural-urban divide in our society in the way that it oddly functions, that, people who are very accusatory in one lane get all different when it start coming to you coming out there spending money. But I'll save that for another day.
Okay.
But the general reality of like, oh yeah, we need to open up. You know what I'm saying? And and open up the economy like economy is a Walmart or something. Economy is a measurement. Economy is about like it's an entity, and you measure the things, and then you say this is the type of economy, or you identify the parts of it, and then you say that's y'all's economy. But like the economy is not like, it's not like if you open my front door as a giant E, like welcome to economy. Like go out there and get into it, Justice. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like at some point, if I just go, know what I'm going to do? I am not going out to eat. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm just not. I don't care how open you are. Now, we bought some meals, bring home and other things over these weeks, but generally they could open all of the bars tomorrow. I'm not sitting in nobody bar for I don't know for a minute.
Right.
I don't care what they if all of the Temptations could be there and the Whispers, John Coltrane could come back. You know what I'm saying? Jesus, no offense to anybody. Who you name it. You know what I'm saying? The Last Airbender. All of them could show up and tell me they're going to be at the bar. You know what I'm saying? And Rudy Ray Moore going to be doing jokes, and motherfucking Richard Pryor coming back, and like some other future comedian or I don't know about yet going to come from the future.
You ain't going.
I ain't going. I'm going to say, hey man, that's cool. Y'all got that. I'm cool. I now, because that's where I'm at with it. I don't need that particular stimulation, and also in my mind, I don't need that risk. Right now, I know there's other factors, right? Where other people are situated. There's a lot of other circumstances that get into the need for third spaces, and I do enjoy third spaces. But it's just this idea, it's as much to me about the actual reality, like the physical reality of business being open, as much as the psychological reality, telling people, no, you can begin to consume again at breakneck speed, and please do so. Is what folks is really saying to me. Is like, no, don't hold off on that cool summer outfit for 4th of July, or that big party you was going to spend $2,000, $3,000 on to have a big barbecue. Go do that, because these businesses need that revenue activity to happen.
Well, you agree. Here's the thing: we agreed to a consumption-based economy without agreeing. We all bought into it, and then people keep finding better ways for us to spend money.
Yeah,
right. They keep finding better and faster ways. Like there's no faster way to spend money than Amazon. Right? Because now they got my shit. They be like, you be like, you like this book? Okay, just swipe this.
Yeah, that's
just swipe it.
Buy now.
Like
buy now.
By now, you'll have it in 3 days. Cool. Right? It hits that part of your brain that like it get turned on. Like, oh yeah. Like you know what I mean? So but it's psychology, and we have this economy because it's a consumption-based economy, and you don't recognize it until people start to realize, like, wait, if I can't sell you something, I can't survive. Right? Like, and even as I can't make no money if I can't sell you something. I can't sell you something if you're not outside. So you got to get it back outside, because I know your psychology is what you're going to go do.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? And America's just one big shopping mall. It ain't always the best stuff, right? So America's like a shopping mall that like the bottom floor and the second floor all pretty garbage stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like this is a couple of things, but it stalls everywhere. It's all shit, it's them soaps, the Dead Sea bath salts from Israel. It's somebody's selling stuff to redo your sneakers. That's just like we just sell anything, right? And I realized it because being home, I was like, okay, so what are you gonna buy? You can buy books and clothes. Why? Because that's what you're into.
Yeah.
I'm not going to think to buy nothing else, right? Like you're not going to catch me just being like, you know what? I think I need that, right? Like the candy in front of the supermarket idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the psychology of a begging child in your own hunger.
Yeah.
So I just think outside is open because people got to get paid, man.
Yeah.
So I don't think nobody should dissuade themselves. And then that, shout out to, Governor Wolf and everybody, ain't no smoke. I'm just saying it's open because people have figured out in the conscious of what Americans are willing to go through and what, like you said, the metrics and the measurements can bear from lack of circulation of resources.
Yeah.
Then it's time, right? It's time to, but listen, man, when you look at all the rules of what you got to do, like, only single use menus, silverware is going to go out into the gutter because, silverware is going to go into the gutter because everywhere is going to have one use forks. So there's going to be a whole shift of that like the economy is going to have to judge. But I guess I think about it very similar to like Uber. Like if you would have said to me, and this is obviously gypsy cabs, hacks, jitneys, any variation of what you want to call it in the black and brown communities that have been happening for time immemorial, right? Mm-hmm. But the idea that you have an account and every time you call a car to come get you, they just take the money out your account. That's just a new level of consumption.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
It had a valuation of billions of dollars, right? And so then people just realize when you ain't gotta go nowhere, guess what? It's really not important for them to have your stuff on. You know what I mean? Now what matters is Uber Eats, which is just delivery under a name with a person with a nicer car. Right. So so listen, man, like I said, outside's opening up because the cost of doing business is as such.
Yeah, it's a cold piece. I was because I really was trying to I was like, well, if I'm because I was trying to read, I was trying to think about all right, so what that is not currently going on, like needs to go on, that and I got like my long-term barber here, I was talking to him, briefly and asked him about he's like, we looking at what the structures would be to open my shop back up, and good folks there. And, I'd like to get my beard trimmed by somebody that's better with clippers than me, you know what I'm saying, at some point in the next, month. That would be great. So like that's, to the extent to which the things I'm going to engage with. But then the bigger, like the threads, right? Like, if the food industry is at least changed, pretty firmly, probably for the next 2 years, travel is changed. The reality of our particular consumption monster is somebody finds a way to give you something that you want. So if it's open air, this is all of our bar structure, they all have open air with big fans or something, or some kind of suction UV light things that burn viruses, you know what I mean? And you can come get a really, because, it's something too, getting a nice fancy sandwich somewhere, it's not the same as getting a fancy sandwich at home, but it, right. You know what I mean? And then just depending, from the person, from a social status perspective that needs these things, to people who do to the in many cities where the cost of business has been, you don't really need a fully functional kitchen because you can just eat out all the time.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's cheaper for you to have a little fridge and like a 2-burner stove, and then just eat out a lot. Then two your three if you eat 3, or 2 you 50% of your eating requires you to go out to pick it up every day where someone else prepared it. That's a part of how you function. Like it's so many layers. And then you get to the other thing of places where in some businesses that especially in the gray economy, who they may be like, hey man, shit ain't really closed. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
They like,
oh yeah, yeah.
Like, shit been open for us, player. You know what I'm saying? Like,
because the model. I mean, if you think about a lot of our businesses, the model was like, yeah, we got about 3 weeks to a month, right? Like, we can survive. Once you start getting into that 2 and 3 months, and I got to pay people, and I still got to pay rent, and I still got to pay, I got to be ready to pay the light bill once the light bill comes due, right?
mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
We're just going, catch me if you can. I'm the gingerbread man. Like, you know what I mean? And then, there's no indictments, but there's a challenge of folks acknowledging, like somebody, my brother, Nate the barber, made a good point last night. He said, man, he's like, I clean up around everybody. He was like, I'm cleaner than the vast majority of places you're going to go to. Like barbershops are just clean. Like we spray down everyone's chair, we wash towels after every usage, right? Like, we're incredibly sanitary.
Yeah.
And so I think there was assertions about what was okay to engage in and what was not. I don't know if all those were founded.
Yeah.
I know we were hanging on a string. It was just, making them as we go. So, no smoke. But I just think, some people just never shut down. You're right.
So, the world, we go on. That's what we do. I just, what is it? You want something, you want good outcomes, and then you want to try to, I guess, make the best decisions you can within the confines of the decisions that appear to be available. I think a lot of people are going to be disappointed. They'll be like, everything's open. You know what I'm saying? They're like, why ain't anybody coming to this store? They'll be like, I don't know. Or,
well, the one, it's only going to be 50%. Even like here, it's only going to be 50% of occupancy, and that's at Green.
mm-hmm.
So I'm going to be really interested to see the economics of like how you get half of your people to come in and still make the same money you was making without raising prices.
Yeah.
Which could then turn people off, because again, this is not like everyone's been getting a check. So some people are going to be more price sensitive than ever. Now, some businesses and some places benefit because the people that are supporting them are not price sensitive, right? They coming in by a $12 or $15 hamburger, and they bought it whether it was a pandemic or if it wasn't.
Yeah.
But other people, I think, are going to be much more price sensitive.
Yeah. I guess I'm more concerned with and I've started to try to do a little reading, what's going to happen with rents and the amount of people that ain't paying the rent and not going to be able to pay the rent. And then the cascading, is the construction world going to shutter up? In a sense, I mean, projects that are maybe already underway, they're going to keep going. But, there's a whole lot of other things that are like, they're not right now things, but they're 7-8 months from now things that the
Right.
wave is going to hit those industries or hit those fields, from a, maybe right now there's not a slowdown in home purchases, but maybe next year there is, because the kind of the wave of people who realize their financial circumstances have changed and whatever move they were going to make is no longer available. Or, well, if there's a massive defaulting and paying utility bills. Like it's any number of these different these other factors that I think will slow down. But then all of it then circles back around to me too, to the like how folks are organized themselves to live within what we have, and then sort of all the other assumptions of how how you're going to get along. You took this, you do this type of, we do jobs because jobs pay us. They may also be like rewarding, exciting places that we love to be. But also like a part of whatever one does is so that they can, buy food and keep a house, keep a home, somewhere to live and all that. And, there's going to be movements of people and things. Cities have been, I think there are going to be a lot of people living in cities, but I wouldn't be surprised if, several big cities suddenly had people that don't go back. Like if they bounced, that they don't go back, or they don't go back permanently. They go, they companies decide. I remember reading some articles, looking at commercial real estate, especially in like New York, Manhattan specifically, and that the bet that, oh yeah, corporate offices and this is going to be the move. And then like, what if the leverage space and a loan was taken out and this other thing was done and somebody packaged up 4 other things, invested this other thing, but now they're going to start defaulting because they ain't getting the rents and when all that stuff starts happening, it's going to get real interesting.
So, I mean, the thing is, we don't feel the pain of this because everything is still being subsidized. Now, obviously, there's some people that still didn't get a check and all that kind of stuff. But the challenge is between 3 and 15 months. 3 months for people when stuff stops being subsidized, and 15 months when this hits the nonprofit organizations. Because for the vast majority of people, philanthropy has said, hey, keep your money, right? But they're also, next year, the question is going to be, if they overextended this year, can they pay everyone next year to continue to do the social services that have emerged out of this crisis? And the answer is going to be no, right? I'm on the board of an organization today where the state was like, yeah, we said we're going to give you, I'm not going to say the number, we know we're going to give you closer to $1 million than not. No, my fault. Don't start. Nah, we're not going to do that. Right?
Yeah.
Like, nah. We're taking it back. Yeah. Right? Now, this organization is doing well and is like led well. So that closer to $1 million than not is not going to result in any firing. But how many organizations can say that? That if you started doing your budgets based on the idea of someone giving you close to $1 million and they take their money back, that somebody don't get fired? Right?
Yeah.
Like the vast majority of organizations can't say that. So I just think like between 3 and 15 months, because I think 3 months is going to be when the subsidies come to an end. 12 to 15 months is going to be when it hits the philanthropic sector.
Yeah.
It hits the nonprofit sector.
Whew, man. But, in the meantime, it will be interesting. I mean, how all of this is going to play out in the, the coming election. What things are going to shift, and work environments are going to shift. Healthcare is going to shift. I think commercial real estate is going to. I mean, commercial real estate's been in a shift for a while, especially as it pertains to like malls and sort of quasi city type. Sort of dense, but not that dense, but kind of dense. Like all of those factors, transit, like all these things, I think are going to have some weird outcomes based on this change and things opening back up, so to speak. As the realities of what people will and won't do, where they will and won't travel, how they'll spend the money that they have, and especially when you get into how they will spend the discretionary money that they have. It's going to be all that notwithstanding, to if we have sudden spikes and like hundreds of people getting sick and what have you, not even delving into that. You know what I'm saying? Trying to stay in the optimistic space that our communities will be able to handle folks getting exposed, becoming ill, and hopefully recovering in a meaningful time. Like, that's a whole other conversation. So,
yes, sir.
Man, well, all right. Well, I don't know.
Well, so just because I think too, with some of the things we talked about, there's also the idea of like that we don't end on a positive note. I want to share, I don't know if it's like necessarily positive, but just like, I think it's important right now to find happiness and be okay with not finding happiness in what other people think it's okay to find happiness in. Mm-hmm. like to not be like, I found happiness in my family. Well, yeah, because you've been with them a long time. You never really spent too much time with your family. So it's okay to say that you might not be as fond of them as you know what I mean? Like, if that's the case. But just, whatever your interest, finding that sense of joy, I think becomes really important. And also, what goes along with the decades and hundreds and years of Black struggle is Black joy. And us acknowledging that even when we are doing this, and then we talk about building power and changing the cost of doing business, that we still strut, we still fly, that we still put it on. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And never allowing the anguish to be the defining character and defining characteristic rather of our narrative, man. So
absolutely,
just wanted to leave with that.
Word up. I think that's the perfect way to close it. So that I'm just gonna say peace.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to The Good Brothers. Me and my brother I'm Majestic did our best to sort of walk through this conversation, and it's a perilous matter, a dangerous matter, a challenging matter. Please take the best part and understand all words said and those thoughts shared were in the intent to find resolution and order in our own minds and in our own hearts, and to be able to persist in a world that we have to persist in and do what we need to do. I wish for the best for all those affected and harmed. Most importantly, one more time, to make sure it's clear respect and love to George Floyd, those who knew him and loved him and who grieve more than us all. As always, you can find this work and other works at AsherOldhead.com. You can find it on the Asher Oldhead podcast feed. You can find me at Justice Rajee on Instagram, Twitter, you name it. Search Asher Oldhead on Facebook. There's even a line you can leave a message. Numbers in the liner notes there. So anyway, I won't belabor this, man. Turn this one around fast because I wanted it out there in the world for those that might be listening, man. Please be safe. Peace.